Hello and most welcome to 845 of the H series. It's now nightfall here, it's rather chilly, it's been chilly all day, around 7 or 8 degrees, felt like less, 3 I would say, because of humidity I gather. I will talk about contradictions today and try to look into a little bit more what could contradictions be, and even investigate into the idea that there are generalizable contradictions, that there is a possibility for contradictions in itself. Can something self-contradict? And I think this is very similar to the idea of self-identity, is not far from. Is that a possibility? And can we have contradiction without polarities? Is there a possibility that properties, for instance, can exist in some isolated way without there being something to compare to? And I think that question is equally legit as the question, are properties completely independent? Don't they need to be independent? Are they always connected? And I think both questions are completely just. And short spoiler here, as I would say that properties can be completely independent and be self-servant, and could at the very same time be completely dependent. I think both things hold, and more things could hold. Why is that? Well, I would say that question of contradiction is one of the most important ones in all of thinking. Edward de Bono mentioned a lot of contradictions in certain specific ways that gives the idea of an absolute truth independent of directions, intentions, or a why. It's often a thing that Heidegger asks for. Why don't we have a why here? Where should it lead? Why are we just trying to mechanically arrange two factors, one called true and the other one called false, without looking to what it leads to, what is the purpose? And I think one of the reasons we have so many problems today, and here I agree completely with the Bono's analysis of the modern Western world, because it has experienced more conflict than ever before. And one of the reasons is that every little singular part of the educational system is talking about truth today. And it doesn't lead anywhere to ask what is the truth. There is no true vacuum cleaner, there's no true chair. This truth idea has its work, but truth is more of a relation, and a relation that could be functioning great or a little less great, but there is no single valid logic for truth. And I would say the truth values that are used now should be lower on the level. It should be not the most important. The first thing we ask ourselves should not be, is it true? And of course one logician would say directly, well then you don't know if it's true or false. Correct. There are more important things than true and false, and this hyper-vigilance when it comes to true and false is absurd, and it's very counterproductive. And of course it is a simplification of reality that leads to failure and dissatisfaction. True value doesn't serve that purpose at all. In Japan, for instance, where what is it good for, or where does the action lead to? And of course in those Indian languages that don't have anything other than verbs, cannot have truth values, because verbs don't lend themselves to truth values. They are more advanced. It's a more complicated thing, a verb, than an object or a subject. Verbs show a whole scale of interesting and enticing properties, but it doesn't lend itself only to see it as truth. And once again, let's see this from another angle. Try it out a little bit. Put two things next to each other, something white and something completely black. Now you can understand the difference. But the thing is there not a connection where the proximity is? Just by the sheer putting them together, the contradiction emerges. But was it always there? Is it something that is true in itself, self-existent? Is it like the atoms of Democritus? They are always already out there. We don't need to affect them. We don't play with them. We don't interact with them. Well, I think not. Obviously, contradictions is something that are dependent on the situation. They do exist, but in the situation. And there is no generalizable contradiction. It never can be. How could it be same? How can the difference between black and white be the same as true and false? Existence, non-existence? Where would this property stem from? And would it be an adjective, or would it be something else? It is a little bit like the ancient people dig the hole too huge to get out of, too wide, too deep, and when they no longer see the light, they think that the original idea of digging the hole is gone, and now the only thing that we have left is digging the hole wider and deeper, not why we should have the hole. Truth values become purposeless if we take away the object, the purpose, the goal. And this is what happened. Already started in Greece. They said truth is greater than action even. And that is very demeaning. It's the passivity of the agora, where people stand, contradict each other, and say, just because I contradicted you, something absolute has emerged. And of course, that is the very origin of you true and I'm false, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. But we are constantly ruled by this unconscious laws that are before we sort of spring into action, and they confine what we can do by establishing the idea that there are contradictions, and that these contradictions in some way exist outside of the text, having their force by itself. So a contradiction will be a contradiction even isolated on Mars under a big siphon or anything like that. It doesn't work that way. They are in the context, that is where they get their strength. And if you want to do something, if you want to do writing by yourself, you want to become a philosopher. These pre-arranged contradictions will hinder you. They would be a massive handicap. And I know most people think these are good rules. They can help you with the text. They can help you progress in a logical way. No, they cannot. Logic comes a posteriori. It's a way of communicating, one could say. What you have done needs to be put in a specific order for it to be understood. They are very important. There is no doubt about that. But they only gain their importance and their force if they're used in this way to convey, to communicate. They should not be confused. You should not confuse the communical tool or the communication tool with the tool of doing something, because then you won't have a method, and the method is what I'm trying to show is actually possible. I never thought it was possible to have an active method that you could learn more and more, and it would make you more and more flexible, agile, intellectual, smart, knowing, and all those things. So it would progress by time, something automatic contradiction doesn't do. I would say, as Derrida said once, automatic difference is an ugliness in the text. It makes it nasty. It's mechanic. It's like something I mentioned the other day, the Yale School of Literary Criticism, an absurdism that you can have a method for criticism. This is a bit you inferring that all texts are similar in some way, and that also infers that all authors are similar, and you're taking away more and more for each step you go in that direction. You are demeaning the text. One could say it's about level. Contradictions, blue here on this level, they are not up here in this level. Here you have a more spiritual, godly way. Here we have the intention, here we have the prana. Contradictions emerges often from the text, and they emerges as you write something, but it's not that they are always already there, like logic for some mad reason existed before a big bang or before you start to think. There is already logic there. That is lack of freedom, and of course that is also lack of creativity, stringency, because you cannot be sharp anymore. You need to sort of follow laws or rules that do not fit the situation and the time. You are bound to be completely out of sync. You will not be accurate because there is a changing mood going on. And this idea of a ready-made contradiction just to be taken out of a box, like you have a box of paper clips and just use them, is absurd. It means that you are not playing the game, you are being played. And sadly enough, you're being played by forces you cannot control. They are outside your observation, even unseen. Just give me a second over there.